Hi, everybody. I'm John Self, and welcome to Lunch and Learn. This is a special edition because we are got an extra long program for you today. Where it's about 90 minutes, and we're going to talk about a really comprehensive approach to organizing and executing your job search. About halfway through, we're going to take about a 5-minute break. So just kind of estimate that in your allocation of time. Moreover, we will have this up on YouTube after the broadcast is finished or the streaming is finished, so you can go back and look at it for future reference. It will be up for about 30 days, and then it will be private for only our members. So today we're focusing on how to successfully organize and execute your job search. One of the things that I've noticed, and I will caution you that you need to be aware of this, is that in the past you had really it was interesting. You had a lot of opportunity. I started out in healthcare in the mid 1970s, early 1970s, and if you came out of graduate school and you had an internship and you got an internship with a hospital, 9 times out of 10 or 49 times out of 50, you would be offered a job. And unless you really screwed up, you wouldn't really have to worry about finding another job. You may take a little while to advance your career, but there was plenty of opportunity. But with consolidation and economic tightening, healthcare is no longer the wide open door that it used to be. And there are a lot of people who are investing time and effort in graduate school that may not be able to find the kind of job they want to have. And that's not just healthcare. It's across several sectors in our economy. Today, the one thing that is absolutely certain, when there are opportunities in the marketplace, it's a very, very narrow opportunity. You see a little light at the door, boy, you got to get moving, because it's absolutely really critical for you to be able to get through that door and get the opportunity that you want. So now all our monitors are working and we're moving forward. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am a 27-year recruiter. I have done a lot of different things. I was started off in the news business, but the most important thing with respect to my involvement with this organization is that I was 27 years in executive search. I've taught the interviewing course for over 10 years. And I have also been in coaching for about 10 years. So, and I view myself as a guide more than a coach. A lot of times when people come into the job market, there's a lot of education you got to do and not as much coaching. And so I just that's my approach. I'm a guide. I guess I coach, but I'm more of a teacher to help you understand how the new market works and what you have to do to be successful. One of the things that I would really encourage you to think about very carefully is that you're going to have to reset your mind. The realization is that finding an executive job today is a full on contact sport. You cannot sit back and wait to be discovered. You must get up, dress up, and make it happen. I quoted Mel Robbins in one of my newsletters the other day that says, nobody's coming for you. You got to get up and make it happen. Now, when you get involved in a job search, your mind starts playing games on you. First of all, it can be if you don't have a network, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the consequences of not having a network. But when you get involved, it is a really tough. It's a really tough thing that you have to deal with, and so one of the real problems people have is that they are constantly struggling to keep their mind straight, to keep their attitude up, to be enthused, to be confident. But let me tell you something. It's very difficult. You get down in the dumps, and then you have to be very, very careful because your mind will give you what you see and believe. So if you see problems and drudgery, that is exactly what you're going to get. So you have to work on being very positive. You have to work on being very organized every day. You have to be organized in the sense of set topics or set goals for yourself every day, and then do your best to get there. Don't beat yourself up if you don't get to all those goals, but do the best to set some reasonable goals and achieve those so that you can keep moving in the right direction. If you have a lot of goals and you don't complete them, that will contribute to sort of a negative feeling, and you don't really want to have to deal with that. Now, people say, well, John, why should I hire you or anybody else? This is not very complicated. Well, it's not, but most people default back to their original understanding of what finding a job is. They call that career management. Career management today is a broad subject, and it includes job search, but it also includes branding and a lot of other things. It's not complicated work, but it's not easy. And one of the real problems that people have is that if you're really not careful, you find yourself in a deep hole, and you think, okay, I understand this, I'm going to be okay. And then 6 or 8 months into this search, you're spending money left, right, and center out of your retirement account or out of your savings account, and you're not making any progress. And that can be can really be a buzzkill to be perfectly blunt. So you have to have the mindset that, okay, this is not complicated, but it's not easy. If you don't understand it, if you haven't been in the job market the last 4 or 5 years, get some help because it'll slow you down without that help. The other mindset change, the job market has changed. And if you do not accept the change, if you do not do what is necessary, what you must do, instead of what you feel comfortable doing, and this or any future services, you could be looking at prolonged unemployment. And I've seen it already in the last 5 years where the market's been changing and people really get frustrated and they do what makes them comfortable and they don't do what makes them uncomfortable. And what's problematic is they've convinced themselves that they're doing the right thing, and they're playing a lot of golf and they're talking to friends on the phone and they're waiting for the phone to ring. That is a guarantee that you're going to have to make a career change or that you're going to have prolonged unemployment. So you have to it's a contact sport. You have to be very aggressive and you have to be in the office all week. So let's take a quick pause and talk about what our agenda is today. Well, for those of you who don't know, we're going to talk a little bit about the white collar recession. We've talked about it several times. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the white collar recession. We're going to talk about the renewed outlook for hiring. And we won't spend a lot of time on this because we cover this a lot in our newsletters and we've covered it on previous sessions, but we will give you the highlights. Then we will talk about how this whole economic uncertainty, the whole white collar recession, how that's going to affect job seekers today and going forward. We've already talked about some of the career mindset issues. Then we will talk about steps to deal with this new landscape and a plan of action. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And we'll be taking a break about halfway through. Now, here's the secret combination for success. You are not afforded the luxury of picking and choosing which elements of the job search toolkit that you want to use. You cannot stay in your safe zone. And when people struggle to find a job, a lot of them are staying in their safe zone. They will argue with you, no, they're not. But the fact of the matter is they are. You have to get outside your safe zone. I'm really fortunate to have some really great clients and several physicians who are clients and physicians who came up in medical school as scientists and maybe have had a couple of executive jobs. Now that they're in the marketplace, this whole new construct is totally foreign. They absolutely don't feel comfortable doing what you have to do to find a job today. And so there is understandably some pushback. But I guess what I'm going to tell you today is the information I'm giving you is not going to make you feel any better, but it's what you have to do. And if you get a good coach, someone or a good guide, someone that you trust that will poke you when you need to be poked, will try to give you the information to help you adapt, will try to critique what you're doing to show you how you can improve. That's what you need. But you can't sit back and say, well, I don't like the social media, and so I'm not going to do that. Or I don't like networking, so I'm not going to do that. In this market, please believe me, you have no options. You've got to get all in, and it's a contact sport. You've got to really be aggressive, and you've got to do things that you never thought you might be doing. So if you were a clinical physician and now you're an executive, you're going to have to play and do the things that executives do and aren't having to learn how to do in this new market. Just because you're a physician or you're not alone. There are a lot of executives out there that are not adapting. And so this is a really critical, important thing to do, is that you've got to change. Executives are having to change. This is not something new. I mean, this is a kind of a new zone. This is a new market, a new landscape, whatever you want to call it, but it's new and everybody is having to change. And if you don't change, if you don't adapt, you could be looking at prolonged unemployment or what we call forced retirement. So as I said earlier, let's talk a little bit briefly about the white collar recession. It was started really back around 2010, 2012, when companies began to say, look, we don't need to replace the vice presidents. We need to just have them do more. Not run day-to-day departments, but to supervise more departments. So we are going to do more with fewer executives. Then the pandemic came along, and that just reinforced that whole notion that we can do more with less. Initially, nobody knew what was going to happen. The pandemic was a real eye-opening experience for most of Americans, those that actually believed it was a real thing, even though 1 million people died. And some people, some companies did a lot of furloughs. And when the market began to pick back up, the furloughs became permanent layoffs because they realized they could do more with less. So executive hiring has not returned to pre-pandemic levels yet. And it's a real question mark when that will happen. So what's the impact? What's the outlook? I think the business climate, including hiring, is impacted by uncertainty. Business executives, if you're listening to the shows, if you're watching the Wall Street Journal and other business publications like Business Insider, business executives hate uncertainty. And right now we have a lot of uncertainty. It's not necessarily all bad. It's just when you have a new president doing different things in a different way, when you're talking about a lot of tariffs and a lot of other things that he wants to do, some will happen, some he's just throwing out there to throw people off, it creates uncertainty. Now, business leaders were very optimistic about the post-election, but right now they're pretty much consumed with the uncertainty and they hate it. Now, I think additional layoffs, I think, are possible. Southwest Airlines yesterday afternoon announced 1,750 layoffs. That's the first time in the airline's 53-year career. 53 years, they've never had a mass layoff like this. And so I don't know if that's just Southwest Airlines succumbing to the active investors that are going to try to jack up their price and then take their money and run, or if that's a hint that the market is slowing. They reported record earnings last year or record revenue last year, but they still struggle to really get back in sync with where they were pre-pandemic. They've had some challenges. They've had some leadership issues that weren't addressed promptly, and that's put them behind the curve. United and Delta continue to be the most profitable airlines, and the most successful airlines, Southwest has lost some of its luster, and they had big layoffs. And I think as you see these layoffs, that there are going to be some layoffs in the auto industry if the tariffs actually occur. Now, the last time, just a side note, the last time Trump threatened tariffs to Mexico and Canada, they gave him some malarkey about what they would be willing to do. Things they'd already promised the Biden administration, and he's agreed to it and called off the tariffs and said we'll hold them off for 30 days. He's now said we're going to put tariffs on steel and aluminum beginning March the 11th. We get 44% of our aluminum from Canada. We get 26% of our steel. This has major implications, and law and auto executives have already said if this happens, we see higher prices. We see lower sales because of the high prices. And I think that that will affect executives who are in the job market. That will affect them their ability to do a better job in finding a new position. Now, there's a current excess inventory that's out there, and it is really kind of a problematic thing for people who are looking for jobs. And so when you go through this process, and you have additional layoffs, that's just flooding the zone with more inventory. We believe right now that you're looking at a possibility of having probably an 18-month or longer inventory absorption cadence. In other words, it may take 18 to 24 months to absorb all the executives that are already in the market, and that's assuming that they start hiring pretty aggressively. And that there's no indication that that's going to happen through at least the middle part of the year. Business climate is slowing down, and all the people, I heard this at a Christmas time, a networking presentation that I did for a big group in Fort Worth, and good people. But one guy said, well, now that Trump has been elected, and I'm not making a political comment here, he said, now that Trump's elected, that's going to free up all this hiring that people have held back because they didn't want to hire people under the regulatory issues of Biden, and all of it's going to happen, and it'll all start happening before Christmas. Well, first of all, there's no hiring before Christmas. I've been in 27 years of executive search. It was the rare search you started after November 1st. Okay, and most searches start again late February, mid-March, and the hiring goes through the summer. Well, that didn't happen, and it's probably not going to pick up substantially unless there is a big surge in demand, market demand. And right now, that's not happening. And the other thing you got to consider is that businesses have learned they can do more with less. So whether we will ever return to pre-pandemic executive levels that we had in a lot of these companies is really up in the air. So with this really tight market, with this uncertainty in the economy, uncertainty in the regulatory landscape, when you get into the job market, you can't fiddle-fuddle around. You can't say, well, I'll kind of learn it on the fly. Every job interview that you go to that you don't close, you're just adding time to your job search. You're wasting opportunities. You cannot afford to do that. You have to really be prepared. You have to understand the new rules. You have to understand what the clients are looking for. You cannot show up and just answer questions. Execution is absolutely critical. And if you don't execute well, it's just going to be traumatic for you. This is the most challenging time I've seen in the last probably 15 years, maybe 20, in terms of people executing job searches. So how will this impact job seekers? Well, we're stamping all over that issue, trampling it into the earth. Basically, what's going to happen is you're probably not going to see any substantial improvement in mass hiring until at least the middle part of 2025, and it may extend through the balance of the year. A lot of it, again, depends on what the impact the tariffs have on the economy and whether inflation reignites. Now, so that doesn't mean that there's no hiring going on. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that when you get an opportunity, you see an opening, you really absolutely cannot afford to foul it up. You cannot afford to, kind of go to your default position and do it the way you've always done it, because that's a recipe for disaster. So the impact on job seekers, networking and brand management are going to be critical to your success. If you're not doing this, start immediately. If you don't know how to do it, talk to someone who can help you get that done, because that's extremely important. Intense competition. For every search you apply to, unless it's a really high level, you're probably looking at 100 to 300 qualified competitors per search. I've talked to some recruiters that say, they're just overwhelmed with executives applying for jobs. A lot of organizations, because there is such an oversupply and there is such demand to get back to work, a lot of companies now are not posting on job boards. When you see a job board posting, you have to be very careful. Check the company's website to see if that's active, because a lot of companies have just continued to pay Indeed or continue to pay iHire or Zip Recruiters to keep their name out there, but they're not really recruiting for the positions they posted. When you take the time to file or to online apply for a ghost opportunity, you're wasting an hour and a half, and that's time off until you can get your next job. So be very thorough, be very detailed oriented. Don't apply for a job unless you verify that it's on the company's website, or unless a networking source says, yes, this is the real deal, they're going to hire somebody. Another mindset change. You've got to understand this is a zero-sum game. A lot of times I would see people, they didn't get a job and they didn't take it seriously. This is a market, when you don't get a job, you have to stop and say, what did I not do right? What could I have done better? And you've really got to tear yourself apart in a constructive sort of way, if you will, and try to figure out how you can get better. You need to do some reflective thinking. If you're going to 4 or 5 interviews and you're not closing the deal, something's wrong. It's something you can probably fix, if you will. But if you say, yes, I'm going to fix it, and then go to your default position again, which is 10 years ago, job searching ideas, and which are really hard to change. I mean, I understand that. Then you're going to struggle. If you don't change, you're going to struggle. You've got to understand that there are some new rules out there, and the new rules, it's all about value. It's all about meeting the employer's needs, because they now have tons of options. They don't need you. I don't care if you went to Harvard or Yale. Matter of fact, a lot of their new graduates have had trouble getting placed this past year. So it is changing. This is not just me in Tyler, Texas, telling you it's changing. It really is. As you get moving into the job market, you must absolutely understand, and I'm talking with laser precision, what your value is. If somebody says, why should we hire you? You can't fiddle fart around and try to come up with a real dynamic answer. You got to have that ready. You have to write it down, think about it, to practice delivering it. Because when they say, tell us about yourself, you cannot afford to mumble, stumble, and jumble. That you're going to lose the opportunity. And that's what we're talking about. You've got to execute properly. Now, the impact on job seekers, the time to hire. And we watch this very carefully. When I was doing recruiting, and I stopped in 2018, 2019, the time to hire for an executive was about 4 to 6 months, because that's what it took to complete a search. First of all, search firms are consolidating because there's less business for them. If you look at the big firms like Korn Ferry, which is the global leader, Russell Reynolds, which is one of the oldest, I think Heidrick and Struggles is the oldest, they've taken on some other smaller regional firms, and they expanded their portfolio of services to include organizational development, coaching, they're doing coaching, and a whole wide range of activities. And why is that? Because the number of searches is declining. Why is that? Well, at the senior C-suite level, the firms still get those suite searches because they always have, and a lot of the talent acquisition arms of corporations or big systems don't have that level of contacts or expertise. However, vice presidents, senior vice presidents, chief financial officers, a lot of those at health systems and small to medium-sized companies, those are not being done by recruiters anymore. They are being coordinated internally if they have any type of depth to their HR department at all. These jobs now, a lot of them are not posted. About 70% are not posted. And the time to hire cadence now is 6 months to, from 4 to 6 months, 8 to 14 months. That's a long time. And when you start thinking about this, a lot of the severance is only about 6 months. If you get that much, if you're a corner office person, you may get a year. But if you're taking 14 months, you got 4 months to cover from your former salary. So you absolutely can't, can't be trial by error. You have to have a search plan. You have to have options. You have to know what your value is. You have to be ready to customize that resume. You need to really be aggressive at networking. All of those things you have to do. That's not what you want to do. You have to do. And that's the mindset for success, jumping from the can't to the can. Um, One of the things that you've probably heard since you were in college is networking is important. Now, physicians, that was not as important. Once you got into practice, networking was important for referrals and to build, to build a resource base to practice medicine the way you wanted to. But today, success, whether you're a physician executive, whether you're a CFO for a steel or aluminum fabricator, or for a regional, equipment rental company, your success in overcoming a layoff, your success in advancing your career, your success in finding that next better job if you're laid off will depend on your network. You absolutely cannot take the chance of saying, well, I don't have time. And I heard that for years and years and years. And a lot of people got away with it, and some people didn't network and they took early retirement because they couldn't get back into the game. And if you've been a CEO or senior level executive and you've now got a 14 to 18-month gap in your employment, that's a really bad sign. And you're probably going to get dropped by a lot of people who are concerned that there's something else going on. Okay, the new trend mindset, the mindset for success. Number one, you've got to develop a career plan. And I'm talking about in writing now. Don't wait. This is your cornerstone. You may only want to work 5 more years. What is your plan for the next 5 years? What are you trying to accomplish? If you want to do interim work or fractional work, okay, set up a plan. What do you have to do to achieve that goal? This has to be the cornerstone, whether it's your job search or whether it's working 5 more years or whether it's working 30 more years. Well, I don't want to plan because it's going to change. Well, gosh, yes. No kidding. Because business plans change all the time. That's why they do annual reviews. Okay, let's talk about building your professional network. If you think finding a job is hard now, wait a year and try to find a job without a professional network. It will be tantamount to getting a root canal without xylocaine. It will be painful and it will be probably the hardest thing you will have ever done in your career. You have to build a network. This is equity. This is how you're going to find jobs going forward, because automation is changing the face of recruiting, of career advancement. Robin Dunbar, an Oxford anthropologist, economist, has estimated that between the right number of connections in a network for your business purposes, for recruiting, for career advancement, is about 135 to 150, because that's the number that you can actually manage and develop relationships with. Anymore, and it gets very, very difficult. I mean, you want to network as a supplement to doing your regular job, but also your future career. It's not your primary job. So that's what you need to do. Find 130 to 150 people who align with your written career plan and start building a relationship. This is your career equity. In contacts, I have 16,000 contacts. Well, big deal. Contacts don't refer you to jobs. It's relationships. It's people that know you and trust you. Now, we said this earlier, and I'm going to go back to it again because it's very important. It reflects the change in the recruiting talent acquisition marketplace. You have to develop and sustain an online brand. And, everybody says, oh, yeah, LinkedIn. Well, guess what? YouTube is out there too, and you might better consider developing a presence on YouTube. And if you are trying to build a new business, if you decided, okay, I can't get another job, I'm not going to be able to find one or find one in a timely manner, and I'm going to start my own company or I'm going to buy a company. Depending on the type of company you get into, you may want to use Instagram, because Instagram has some advantages that the other online platforms don't have. Finally, you need to begin journaling, documenting your relationships and accomplishments with quantifiable metrics. When you go to job interviews now, they don't want a best ever. They want to know what you can do for them. And it's absolutely critical that you be able to talk in very specific information. If you have before and after comparisons, that is powerful stuff. And you know who's getting the jobs? It's the people not where they went to school, not that they work for great companies or great health systems or great consortiums. No, it's they had experience, they had good degrees, they were smart, they were articulate, but the ones that are getting the job are the ones who do the best job defining their value, showing the potential employer how they can benefit the company. People say, well, I don't need to do that. I'll remember that. That's not true. After 27 years of listening to thousands of interviews, and I probably interviewed 9,000 executives in my career, I've heard more generalized BS and just garbage answers because people didn't remember. Okay, nobody really talked about journaling to a great extent. Now, if you're a millennial or a Gen Z, start networking. Build up your database of your accomplishments and the people you know and the people that can help you. This will become invaluable in your future job searches. And people say, well, I just don't want to do that. That's not the way I want to do my career. Hey, I'm sorry. You don't get to make the rules. If you say that's what I'm going to do, well, understand there are consequences. You probably, if you have a desire to be a corporate CEO, the chances are achieving that goal, if you want to do it your way, are diminished. In the old days, people said, "Oh yeah, you could kind of get lucky." Well, I ran in our newsletter yesterday. I quoted Ursula Burns, who ran Xerox. She went from becoming an intern to the CEO of the company, the first African American woman to run a Fortune 500 company. And she said, "It's all about hard work. It's not about luck. It's about preparation." So one of the things we're talking about here today is to be successful in a job search, you have to prepare. You have to do all those things that are necessary to get yourself known and to make yourself relevant. So when you talk about your career plan, what are you going to do? Well, the first thing I would suggest is you do a SWOT analysis and understand your weaknesses, your strengths, your opportunities, and the tactics you're going to have to use to achieve, that you're going to have to overcome and use those to achieve your goal. Your goals may change. Okay, that's fine. Adapt. If you don't adapt, you'll die. Just agree to that and move on. The other thing is establish your goal and then reverse engineer it. And people say, I don't have time to do that. Okay, that's something you don't want to do. That may impact your ability to offer a compelling story to a potential employer. If you know where you're going, you have a better chance of getting there. I've interviewed people for so many years, and I routinely ask them, did you have a written career plan? And the people who did, which was a small number, like probably somewhere around 20 to 23%, they all said, yes, I do. Several of them said, I consult with my wife so that she understands when we might have to make a career move. When my kids got older, I kept them informed. And we it was kind of a family adventure. We talked about, okay, if we have to leave because the company is sold or company is merged, where do we want to go? And this is something that if the family loves to ski, that said we as one of our options, if the company sells or is merged, to go to the Mountain West so we could be closer to skiing, because that was great. That's a great family cohesive thing that we do. This is part of planning, thinking about what could happen and what your response is going to be, your options, your contingency plans, your emergency preparedness. Okay. And those all have to be part of your career planning. Establish your ultimate goal. Where do you want to ultimately be? You may change your mind. That's okay. But if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there. I assure you of that. And using reverse engineering helps you understand the steps you're going to need to complete in order to achieve your goal. Also, you have to include accountability waypoints. So at the end of the year, did I meet the need goals that I set for myself? Did I perform well in my job? Did I meet my boss's expectation? Did I exceed my boss's expectations? Your performance in your current job is extremely important too. That's a sort of a blinding flash of the obvious. But you measure your career plan against your performance in your current job. And then you also say, I wanted to add this many new contacts. I wanted to be able to make a presentation to my professional association, either locally, regionally, or nationally, and I accomplished those things. You have to set goals for yourself, or you're going to get really comfortable and stay where you are because it's easier until something bad happens. And that's why you have to create contingency options. Okay, steps you got to take to compete successfully. We're still on things you have to do in the background to be competitive. You have to regularly post on LinkedIn and YouTube. YouTube, let me just take a brief thing. We're going to talk about it more in just a second. This is becoming a powerful, powerful tool. It's not widespread yet, but guess who's taking over recruiting in talent acquisition departments across America? It's not baby boomers, hot flash there. Generation X, they may still control the ebb and flow, but the people getting the work done are millennials and Gen Z. Now, can anybody tell me what millennials and Gen Zs grew up doing? Watching video. So if you propose to have a brand that is recognizable, if you propose to have a reputation that people say, I've heard of him, he's somebody we need to talk to, you're going to have to do some self-promotion. Now, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, but let me tell you something. It's something you will have to do. I guarantee you that going forward. If you say not, you're going to miss opportunities. And this is all going to be about a couple of things: being good at what you do, understanding your value, and being recognized for your accomplishments. If you sit back and think they're going to find you on their own, you're crazy. So be active in professional and local groups. I spent a lot of time in healthcare, so I became involved in the American College of Healthcare Executives Dallas-Fort Worth chapter and went on to be the president of that chapter for 2 years. I came back to Tyler after I got tired of traveling and became the president of the local chapter, again, something I swore I'd never do. That was right in the middle of the pandemic. And so what we had to learn to do was build our chapter around remote learning and remote education. And I think we had I can't take the credit. But we had a great bunch of people who were determined to revitalize the chapter. When I arrived on the scene, there were 6 people at our annual meeting at the country club. One year they'd had 75. The chapter today is very active, thanks to a lot of great contributions by people in this area, George Roberts and a lot of other people who really have done a great job in revitalizing his chapter. But you've got to be active in these professional groups. That creates a really positive sort of aura around you, that you are a leader in your local group, you're a leader in a regional association, you're a leader nationally. And you also need to think about, if you've done something unusual or unique, or that's kind of cutting edge, you need to try to apply to be a speaker at your annual Congress or your annual professional trade association meetings. They usually have breakout sessions, and that's a great way for you to promote your brand. So look for ways to contribute, including volunteering. And a lot of people say, God, I don't want to do that. I may have to do something I don't want to do. Well, let me put it this way. What you want to do and what you need to do are really always going to be 2 different things. Let's now shift over and talk about LinkedIn in terms of brand management. Now, this is the 800 million pound gorilla. It has over a billion members now. It's global. It is a free global billboard. Okay. Now, you don't use it that way because you have to. It's really what I would say it is. It's really great because it's a strong research tool. It's a strong brand promotion tool. It's a strong research for networking tool, but it's not the answer to networking. It is simply a research tool. And with a billion members, you can have a narrow or broad focus. If your career goals are much more broadly defined, that's LinkedIn can be very helpful there. Um, Now, a lot of things can be automated on LinkedIn, but in order to be authentic, you have to have one-on-one interaction whenever you can. Again, that's why we say 135 to 150 contacts, and we're really thinking about LinkedIn. That's how you build relationships. Now, it is incredibly powerful if properly used. And you can't just have 10 contacts and say, well, none of those people ever call me. That's basically saying it's all about me. Well, it's not all about you. Rule number one in networking is you're there to help other people. And I'm a big believer, and the research certainly supports this, is that when you help other people, good things come back to you. So when you ask to connect with somebody, you always say, and if there's anything I can do for you, I would be honored to help you. Or if I could share any information, we're doing some really innovative things here. Don't hesitate to call me. Happy to do a virtual coffee and share anything we're doing. And when you are connecting, you want to connect with people above you, at your same level, and below you, because you want to be sure you have a sustainable, ongoing, growing network of people. Now, LinkedIn is not a job finding tool. A lot of people try to use it for that and then get very, very depressed. It's a networking tool in the sense that when you do a lot of posting, you attract attention from the scanners that various companies deploy looking over people's career profiles. So that's how it's kind of an indirect job search tool. It's a way to promote your brand, and the computer scanners that are now doing more and more of the candidate sourcing, not the telephone with the Rolodex, was the case when I got started. It's all automated, and it's being dehumanized in many respects. So it's not a job search tool per se. It is a brand leverage tool. It is a research tool to enhance your networking and to do a lot of other things. And people don't understand it. That's probably why it's one of the most cussed and discussed aspects of job search and career management today. Now, as I said earlier, we're going to talk about YouTube and some other issues. As I said, YouTube, excuse me, is the second largest search engine in the world. And it's owned by the largest search engine in the world. Now, Google, the search platform, has its challenges because people are going to be replacing click this and get some links to do research to click this and get an avatar, which gives you a really well done visual presentation. That's the future of online search. And Google will have to adapt or they will become irrelevant. YouTube is really well positioned because it's a video platform, and people like videos. Videos add power, and videos are power in your brand. So this on the upper left-hand corner is my homepage for YouTube. And we have a headline, and that's my super niche. I'm a career guide. I know all the aspects of how to use, I'm not an expert on LinkedIn, but I've been involved with it since they started in May 2003. I was on the platform beginning January 2004. So I've been there a long time. And there are a lot of people that are really deeply sourced experts on LinkedIn. And that's great. And you can find some of their work, and it's very helpful. My role is kind of a broad approach. You don't need to be a LinkedIn expert and go into that deep dive like you would if you were trying to build a business. I'm able to help people talk about branding, posting, building relationships, and how to use it to build relationships, because that's what really is essential in career management. In YouTube, you're able to use shorts. Now, shorts are, like a minute or less. And a lot of times, when you see the videos that are vertical, those are called reels. And you can do reels, and you have to pay attention to what the platform's like. At one point, a lot of the platforms were asking for just reels, the vertical section. That's still kind of something that you'll see a lot on Instagram and on TikTok. We'll talk about TikTok in just a second. But in YouTube, they are beginning to like longer form videos, 3 to 5 minutes. And there are a lot of ways you can do these. It's not, everybody's scared to death of it, but it's not that spooky. Okay. when you're dealing with the world's second largest search engine, I guarantee you're going to see a lot of people who don't know a lot about video editing. So, learn it. It's something that you'll use. If you're an early, end of the line Gen X or an early stage millennial, if you don't know how to use edit video for brand management, you need to learn. I used iMovie, excuse me, and I was able to learn it on my own. And I'm not really a great learner. I'm a visual learner, and most of the time I can figure it out for myself. But there's probably features that I'm not taking advantage of. But don't be afraid of it. Try it, play with it. If you have a Mac, it's already on your computer. You don't have to buy anything. Now, the video generation, that's the millennials and Gen Z, they are going to assume, as I said a few minutes ago, a greater role in the leadership and videos and leadership, and videos will become an important career management tool. Don't doubt that. That's a surefire prediction. Videos will be integral for converting LinkedIn connections and helping you form them in relationships. Right now, it's a kind of a little bit of a hassle to try to send a longer form video in an email or a DM. There are services called like BombBomb and some others that are not very expensive. They even have free programs, and they allow you to convert your video, and it goes in as an animated GIF in your DM or on your email, so that it's not. People are very suspicious about links to videos. That's why these programs exist. And you can use iVideos, the iMovie. They have moving titles and things like this. And Canva is also very, very helpful. And again, neither one of these sites are really complicated. And you'll find out you can have a lot of fun doing it. But if you have a video or an animated GIF in your email, the open rate is much, much higher. And you said, this is a special movie for you, John. It's, learn more about my career. Younger recruiters will open those if they know they're safe. And if you really assure them, for example, I used a service out of Austin, and it was a really good service. And I just said, it's a Chrome supported service, so it's free of malware. And most people open them. I even used them in DMs to welcome people to my network. But it's not, again, it's a one small tool in a toolkit that's going to have to be pretty crowded to be able to take advantage of all the unique and kind of disparate things in career management today. Again, attracting a following, building relationships, that is going to unlock opportunities for your career. And as you use YouTube, if you have interesting videos, you can unlock monetization. Now, it takes a little while to get there, but there are people who are making lots of money just doing YouTube. One guy who was a YouTube creator, he wasn't looking for a job per se. He was an assembly line manufacturer in a manufacturing plant. He and his wife had been trying to have a baby. They couldn't. Finally, she finds out that she's pregnant. He got so excited, and understandably so, that he wanted to be the ultimate super dad, and found out there wasn't a lot of information online really geared for dads. So he created a YouTube channel that helped dads understand how to put together cribs, the best cribs to buy, the best strollers to get, all the things that dads may have to be involved with in taking care of the kids, and interviewed experts to give dads some ideas of, this is not what you do to change diapers. And I mean, it was just crazy, simple stuff you assume everybody would know. He got so many hits. He had so many viewers. And it's a high bar to get to qualify for monetization on YouTube. But he had so much traffic that he's now considering whether he even wants to continue in his manufacturing floor assembly job. So that's just a kind of a bizarre example of how you can monetize your site. If you are just trying to find a job, it's really effective in terms of being available and referring to your YouTube channel, because recruiters will go and look, especially the younger ones. Now, you can see that's my YouTube channel up in the upper left-hand corner. Again, the other on the left side is Substack. Now, a lot of people don't know what Substack is. Substack, if you're trying to build your image as a really cutting edge leader, innovative leader, and you like to talk about leadership and things that you've been successful for you, Substack is a newsletter essay kind of, it's a writer's site. And you can monetize your newsletters as we do. It's called Guiding Your Career Report. It comes out every morning at 6:30 a.m. And we offer some opinion. We offer some steps on how to find a job. Sometimes information like this will incorporate it in certain newsletters to kind of give it added weight and give some repetition. I found that in career management, people need to hear things more than just one time. So we use our Substack site for that, and you now can do live on Substack with videos. So it's an emerging channel. A lot of people with the changing landscape in media are moving from their day jobs over to Substack. For example, Jim Acosta, who was at CNN, they wanted to put him on overnight because he and Trump never got along, and they were a little bit concerned about, sort of the image for the network. He declined to take that job and went to Substack and is building a business based on Substack. Some lawyers who've been legal analysts for networks are now becoming independent and going to Substack and YouTube in order to build a monetization site and support themselves now that they don't have their networking contracts anymore. So this is an unusual time politically. It's an unusual time for people to redefine their careers. Substack is one way they're doing it. Jennifer Rubin left the Washington Post. She was a conservative writer. She now has her own branding activity and has her own podcast and blog on Substack that she charges subscriptions. Some of the early people moving to Substacks make a lot of money. They were also big-time columnists or writers, sports reporters, etc. And your goal is not to necessarily make a lot of money on Substack, but it's to build recognition for your brand. And this is not for everybody, but it's something you'll hear about more and more going forward. Instagram is an interesting process. I know a woman who was a single African-American mom, had 3 children. A fourth was on the way. Husband took a flyer. He was a runner, and she was now going to be a single mom. She didn't have a job, and her mother, a saint, said, come move home. We'll figure this all out, and I'll help you take care of these kids. And so she she was devastated. She came home. She figured out, she knew bookkeeping. She knew small business. And she started going on Instagram, offering people advice on how to set up small business, bookkeeping systems, how to deal with your taxes, how to do general accounting. I mean, unless your brain's wired a certain way, that's a tough issue to kind of to crack. What she has done, again, was make it, she kind of reduced it down to what small business owners need to know and how to do it. So then she created a membership program so that every week she had a members only live stream on Instagram. She has built that into a 7-figure operation. She's invited to speak to talk about how she was able to turn her life around and to build a business as a single mother of 4 kids. So Instagram is really a good platform for people who are in interior design, or if they are helping people, a narrow group of people, learn a skill or master a skill. And it's really easily to monetize it for membership. It's very visual. It has high engagement rates. That means that people who are on Instagram, they're not just scrolling through like TikTok, which is 1,000 sites in 30 seconds. The other night, before TikTok got into all the controversy of will we survive or not survive, I did a career night question and answer session. And at one point, I had 3,500 people in on the stream. And I was feeling really, really proud of myself, except I went back and started looking at the metrics, because if you're doing all this stuff, you have to pay attention to that. And I found that the average engagement was about 65 to 70 seconds. That put me in that humbled me very fast. On Instagram, you tend to have deeper, longer engagement. You also get a chance to have targeted options on who you want to go after. One third of all the people on Instagram will do point of purchase activity. So if you're selling, some product, home improvement, or you're selling a package of services for a small business, a lot of those people, they have trust in Instagram more than Facebook, although it's the same family, and they'll do a point of purchase sale on Instagram. Um, you have the other thing is when people decide they like you and trust you, there's a lot of loyalty on Instagram. So you have a better brand following and you're able to create more traffic to your website. Another important thing. Now, we haven't talked about that, but I'm going to take a quick detour and tell you that more and more candidates, in order to improve their visibility, not only are they going to YouTube and LinkedIn, but they're also building, animated websites to help boost their visual position in the marketplace. They're doing podcast, or they're doing videos, or a lot of different things. 10 years ago, a senior executive doing this kind of stuff would have been kind of laughed at. Today, it's becoming common. And if you're trying to differentiate your brand in a really crowded market, that's something I would consider. So Instagram is another source. Well, you hear a lot of talk about TikTok. I'm just going to be brief here. I'm a TikTok follower. I think 3 or 4 thousand people who follow me. I don't do a lot of TikTok on TikTok now. I do my Friday photos, funny videos that I do every Friday, and those are extremely popular. And it's a way for people, just to get my name out there. If people aren't going to read my serious stuff, then I will tag a quick commercial on the back end of a funny video, 35 or 40-second video with some music and funny photos. And that's a way that on the backside I'll tag my company. TikTok has that kind of following. That's the reason it was created. But until the legal issues have been resolved, and you need to understand that, yeah, Trump says we're going to buy it. Well, that's great, but we don't have a sovereign fund in the United States yet, and we don't have a lot of money to create one. And the Supreme Court has already upheld the law that Congress passed. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh, we're going to buy this and do this and that with it." There's one company, Kevin, Mr. Wonderful, on the Shark Tank, and I forget his last name. He's leading a consortium that's made a preliminary offer. Now, it's a great site because there are 170 million users in America alone. But it has that connection to China, which is what created this big push and shove. Even if a U.S. Sovereign wealth fund, or the one they create on the fly, or an ex Musk, Mr. X Musk, if he tries to buy it or whatever, the law says that the Supreme Court upheld this, that you cannot have a line of Chinese code in the software. So that means you're going to buy a name and then have to reprogram it. And so that kind of throws TikTok up in the air. I keep my following on there, but I do not spend a lot of time with it. Now, we talked earlier about LinkedIn, and let's see how we're doing on time here. Gosh, I'm not seeing the elapsed time. Sorry about that. So we've been going almost an hour. We're going to take a break in just a second. The first circle in the top left-hand corner, that's the LinkedIn homepage. And you see there's a dialog box with a little magnifying glass next to the LinkedIn logo. If you're trying to identify a company you want to work for, and you'd like to, or you would like to identify companies in a region, you can use that site, that dialog box, and it'll start pulling information for you. If you say, okay, I now have 10 organizations I want to work for in the Mountain West. These are people that I think I would enjoy. I've done my research. If I lose my job and we need to move, I would like to work for one of these companies. Okay, so now you put the company name in, and it'll start bringing up all the members of the company that are also LinkedIn members, which is usually quite a few. Not always, but usually quite a few. And when you do that, you want to be sure that you're getting senior people, peers, and subordinates, because a lot of times the subordinates will be the people who will talk to you, engage with you, because if you're senior to them, they feel very, very good about it. Now, next to that, the second arrow right here is your My Network. So when people see your LinkedIn profile and they decide, I'd like to be connected with him or her. That's where you're going to see the request, and you'll see a little number pop up when they're queued up for you to review. Okay, a word of caution. There are a lot of people out there, typically women, typically Asian, who will say, "Oh, I've been reviewing your resume, and LinkedIn keeps bringing it to my attention. You look like somebody I'd like to learn from. Could we connect? Can I ask a question?" My response is, when they say, "Can I ask a question?" I'll say, "You just did." I initially, and this started happening a year ago. Initially, I would try to respond and engage, but these are people that want to either take you to WhatsApp, they want to take you to Telegraph, which is an outlaw site. I mean, it's a big site, but the problem with WhatsApp, I mean Telegram, is that it's real dodgy. I would not go over there. I would not invest time to put my brand on that site. But just ignore those people. If why? Because you got 135 to 150 people that you need to focus on, and you don't need some dodgy Asian women or Eastern European people trying to take up your time, basically trying to, are you married? How old are you? Where do you live? That's not relevant to help you build your career. Be disciplined. Ignore those people. Let LinkedIn know that I don't know this person. You decide who you're going to connect with. You decide the messages you want to send to people, who you're going to send them to. Never ask for a connection unless you send a personal message and it gives you that option when you want to connect. Never do that. I get in a hurry sometimes and I don't click it the right button and it goes out that way. And I will tell you that when I send a message, I'm more likely to get a connection. I limit the people I ask for now, who would be people who might want to use my service or who might need a coach, or who I could benefit learning from, watching their post. That's how I limit my connections today. When I first got on in 2004, it was like we shot at anything that moved. Excuse me, because nobody knew what LinkedIn was all about. And now that we know, I mean, I could probably pare down my LinkedIn. If I wanted to spend a month doing it, I could probably get that down to about 8,000 people that that would be probably more valuable now that I'm a coach and not a recruiter. So that's kind of just a thought. Next to the networking, the next arrow here, the networking here you have the messages. So when people DM you direct mail, you'll see them pop up here, and then this one is notifications. This is where you're going to find out if a contact has a birthday, is having a work anniversary. Sometimes they'll tell you about their personal anniversary, promotions, new posts that they have. So you pay attention to this one, because when people post, if you read it, go through and say, "That was a great post. Thanks so much." That is building relationships are 1,000 little things. They always say death by 1,000 cuts. Well, relationships are built by a lot of small things, a lot of little things that are really complementary to the person that you're talking to. And when you start doing that, you will start seeing an improvement in your engagement. This is not repeat, not an overnight plan. To do networking right, you need to start a couple of years in advance of getting your ass fired. Okay, so uh, uh, networking is a long-term thing. LinkedIn is very powerful and really helpful, and it's a great tool, but it's not going to help you find a job overnight. So when you post your messages of congratulations, praise, and even holiday greetings for your team or your organization's LinkedIn page or Facebook page, and not, that's great to put it on the company page. But when you talk about your accomplishments, put it on your own page. Your LinkedIn profile should reflect your achievements, your observations, your opinions when you want to share your opinion, and you don't want to share too much political on LinkedIn because that'll get you in hot. People will troll the hell out of you is what they're going to do. And I've done that a couple of times when I saw something particularly egregious and I said that's fake news or whatever. And boy, did I get trolled. So I try to stay away from that now. But, if you want to use occasional posts about, my team, my organization, we passed our goal for United Way, or, we served all of the patients' families free Christmas dinner, whatever it is. That's okay to put it on the organizational post, but always don't make your personal page all about the organization. That's for you to be discovered by scanners who might want to offer you the dream job of your life. So build your separate page. You have a personal page, you have a business page, and you may work for an organization that has its page. Don't invest all your time and accomplishments on the organization's page. Build your own page with your own branding and your own substance for people to understand that you are somebody we need to talk to. Finally, before we take a break, the tricks of networking: establish criteria for accepting connections. Be disciplined. You don't have, just because somebody asks to be a connection, you don't have to do that. You can just ignore it and then click, I don't know this person. Or you can just say, my connections are limited to this area of expertise. I now tell people, if they want to get to know me, I very rarely respond. But if there's some promise there, if they're domestic or they look like they might need some help, I just say, I do not do personal posts. I talk about my business, coaching, and those related subjects. They'll always come back, and some of this is automated, saying, well, where do you live, or how old are you? And I just cut them off. I just unfriend them, or I cancel the connection, and I then block them off the site. Be disciplined. Focus on the people that can help you and that you can help. Okay, let me say that again. Focus on the people that you can help and that can help you. And when you're starting to engage with these people, the mission, vision, and values you create in your goals, your plan, your career plan, you want to use those and incorporate those into all your communications with your various contacts. Knowing your mission and your vision and your values is part of the foundation for building a relationship. And when you try to talk to people and reach out to people, you want to be creative. Look for ways to engage with them. If somebody says, I've had this anniversary, my 10th year anniversary at this company, say, congratulations. And, that's a great achievement, best wishes, one time doing that for one person, they'll never remember it. But if you're constantly connecting and interacting with people, they will remember it. So that's why it's important to check your dashboard regularly. So I think you're probably getting the message now that effective execution and job search requires discipline and organization. And I think that's something that you have to keep is foundational for your mindset. If you're not really set up to be organized, if you don't have a working space and all those things, it's very difficult. So we're going to take a break right now and for 5 minutes. And we'll be back and finish up the rest of this presentation. You're on Lunch and Learn. This is a weekly format. Today, we're doing an extended period of time on job search, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Hello, everybody. I hope this is you had a good break, and we'll get started here in just one more minute. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We're delighted that you're with us today, and that this is information that's helpful to you. We have with the chat box is open. If you have any questions, one of the things that I want to share with you is that people say, "Gosh, this is so negative," and I realize that it is. Sometimes when you're the guide, you're trying to be able to educate people to what really has to happen. And so I think that I can be negative because I'm an old newspaper reporter, and we're there to report how we see things. Now, let me tell you this: as I said earlier, this is not complicated stuff. It's really not. But what it is, it's hard to do, and it's hard because a lot of us were not reared by our parents to brag. A lot of us weren't reared to be marketing guys, although that's what the market's requiring you to do to have a successful career. And so, what I want to tell you is when you want to hire a coach or find a program that allows you to, work through this stuff. And when you have trouble, be able to reach out to someone to get help. And I think, you hear the term partnership. We have partners, and that I think that's an appropriate way to look at it. We have a membership program, and our membership program is allows you to pay a monthly fee. You get 4 30-minute calls. You get 2 hours of group coaching every week, sort of like this. I'll try to make it more positive next time. And we will also provide you with additional support. And if you say, okay, I want to take your interviewing course, instead of paying the full price, you get a 40% discount. So it has some advantages to it, and you might want to consider it as you move forward in your job search. One of the biggest issues I see all the time is that people panic. They lose their job and they just start slinging out resumes left, right, and center. Well, today you can't just send out a generic resume. First of all, online submissions are a little bit of a problem. We're going to talk about that next. But don't panic. Okay. If you got a 6 month or a year severance, don't panic. Now you can't goof off, but you don't need to immediately go in and start throwing things left, right, and center. Take 2 or 3 or 4 days and kind of go through this. When you lose your job, if it's a layoff, you get the sack for whatever reason, or your company's been bought and your job's done eliminated. It's a tough deal because why? Because a lot of us invest our time and our emotions, and that's who we are. Our job. Yeah, we've got families, and those are very, very important. But I will tell you that it's who we are. You will experience grief, and if you're normal, and you need to take several days to kind of think about that, and maybe find somebody to talk about it. It can be for some people like losing a good friend or a relative. All your friends are in those companies, and a lot of them are going to be reluctant to talk to you until all the dust settles, especially if you've been laid off or if they think you've been fired. Nobody wants to be around. So don't panic. Take some time, but don't waste time, and be disciplined. Use the time as you're going through the process to start organizing your thoughts and organizing your next steps forward. Okay, this is probably one of the most important things I'm going to tell you today besides networking and journaling. One is immediately stop online applications. People do this out of panic. and they see all these applications. A lot of those things that you're seeing now, and especially in the executive and management level, they're ghost postings. We talked about that earlier. Companies don't want to take them down. They want to keep their name out there, but they're not recruiting. Nobody's looking at the resumes. You're just going into a black hole. The jobs that companies are looking for now, a lot of those are not even posted anywhere. They're referred by networks or recruiters. So be careful about wasting time on online applications, especially if you're an entry-level management person and you have a lot of those jobs showing up on Indeed, iHire, those types of things. Your chances of getting through on an online application are less than 5%. And it takes an hour and a half to really do the right thing about putting together a good package. And it's a waste. They are the worst. This is the worst way to find a job. And when you have a less than 5% chance of success, and you use all that time, it's crazy. I've had clients come to me at the sixth, eighth, ninth month of their job search to get help because they were not being successful. Some of these people had filed as many as 200 applications, and they got 2 interviews. 200 to 2. Now think about that. Do the math. An hour and a half to do a resume customization, and then if they ask you to fill out the online application, which a lot of people do, you can literally spend an hour and a half to 2 hours. And if you know that your odds are just crappy, don't do that. It takes discipline. It's hard to ignore that. Your best success is if you don't have a network already in place. Then we're going to talk about how you can make one up on the fly. But believe me, it's probably the last thing you ever want to have to do. So there we go. I think that when you don't want to, you got to be disciplined. And to be disciplined, you got to have a place to work. And to be disciplined means you have to go there Monday through Friday and get some work done. A home office away from interruptions and distracting noises. Now, everybody that's ever done a video conference, whether it was a business meeting or even an interview, it's not the dogs barked or kids have come running into the room. That happens once in a job search process. That's probably okay. You don't want it to happen, but it's probably okay, especially if your child is cute and the recruiter enjoys, gets a kick out of it. But constant interruptions are not a good thing, and you want to avoid against it at all costs. So you can't do your job search unless you live in a tiny house. You need to have a place, carve out a place where you can have some privacy, where you can do your telephone conversations, and you can have that sort of confidentiality, privacy issue that you really need. Video is going to be a big part in your job search. Video conference interviews are replacing a lot of those traveling on-site interviews. Not all the time, but they were replacing a lot of them. And you must become proficient at video. These videos are different than the ones you might use to build your brand. And you can tell, today we're not using a background. I'm in my office in my studio in Tyler, Texas. But, you need to have a good background. You need to have good lighting. We have studio lighting in here. You need to have a lot of the computers now have good microphones. But if you don't, you need to have a decent microphone. You need to have a good halo light. So those are all the things you need to get into your office. We'll go into greater detail in a second. Let's talk about journaling, because this is an essential part of what needs to be your daily routine. First of all, log calls for action, log calls from people that you get calls from. Also, make notes about follow-up. Make notes about things you need to get to do. And you want to make notes about the conversations you have with people. They may drop a birth date, or they may drop something that's happening in their organization, or next week I'm being awarded this. I mean, it's interesting if you engage people in conversations, what you can learn, and make a note of that. And then on the day, send a DM on LinkedIn if that's where and said, congratulations, I know you had this big honor today. I was thinking about you, and best wishes. I'd love to hear about it in the future when you have some time. Also, get a database and keep it up to date. Okay, that's extremely important. Telephone numbers, email addresses. Now, if you are in an industry like healthcare or manufacturing or retail, a lot of these industries have associations, and these associations have online directories. And the online directories usually have telephone numbers and email addresses for a lot of different people, including the bigwigs. Now, president of Neiman Marcus or Saks or J.P. Morgan Chase, their personal information is not going to be there. But for a lot of smaller, medium-sized companies, you can find the people because they have to complete that in their association application. And so this is a great way to be able to get information and target facilities for job searches. Number one, when you do that, don't focus on the CEO unless it's a smaller company. Look for the HR people, or if they have a talent acquisition department, look for those people to build relationships with. Then build relationships with peers that might have jobs in your area of specialization. But that's when you record all that stuff, you make all those notes, you say, I'll remember it. No, you probably won't, because again, looking for a job is not like doing your job. It's a totally different thing. It's like interviewing. Interviewing is not like giving a speech. It's not like having a conversation necessarily. It's about you communicating your value in response to questions. It's one of the most challenging and difficult types of business communications for people. And so you have to understand you need to use the tools to make you successful at your job search, because it is different than your regular job. Keep a journal. When you accomplish something in your business, write it down, date it so that you know where it is. And you can even use indexes. I mean, I use books like this, for my writing, and well, you can't see them. I tab everything so that you can find stuff when you're building a resume or preparing for an interview. And this is a great way to document your career, because knowing the metrics, the quantifiable achievements are going to make you a stronger candidate. Okay, and if you think I've been giving you tough love before, here's time for tough love. If you're not in the office connecting, if you're not out having coffee with people related to your career and related to getting information to help you advance your job search, that's non-productive time in this context. And the more time you spend out of your office on non-productive things, the longer your job search is going to take. I know people that would jump at a chance in the middle of the week and go play golf. Oh, I was just discouraged. I just couldn't get over it. You wouldn't go walk out on your job at work. Well, I was just discouraged. I heard something today discouraged me. So I just took the afternoon off. Everybody was looking for you. Your boss was looking for you. What the hell was going on? Oh, I went to play golf because I was discouraged. Let me tell you something. If you go play golf or go play tennis or go to the movie or whatever you'd like to do, every time you get discouraged in a job search in today's market, hell, you're never going to be in your office. So you have to have the discipline. Monday through Thursday is usually prime networking days, prime days to get things done. Friday morning, it begins to taper off. If you want to go play golf, you want to go to the movies, you want to go see friends, you want to just chill, that's Friday afternoon. Okay. Now, if you go out on Wednesday, then you got to do the stuff Wednesday afternoon that you on Friday afternoon. You can't afford to just let things slide. Every hour that you take away from your for every hour you're not actively networking, you can add a half day to your time to hire. 4 hours to play a round of golf on a Wednesday afternoon, prime networking time. Do the math. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And yet that's what people do, because they hope that somebody's going to come find them and help them get that job. No one's coming. You have to make things happen yourself. So no golfing, except if you want to play golf, that's great. I understand. I used to play golf. I understand the pull of the game, the magnetism of the game. But please be disciplined. Use that for times, Saturday morning, Friday afternoons, when people are not going to be interested in helping you find a job. And please don't dismiss that, because it can be really pretty difficult. Now, we talked a minute ago about using LinkedIn. Okay, you're building your plan and you have a pathway to where you want to be. And some people, they stay in that that pathway, and they never vary. If you want to be the CEO of a health system, or if you want to be the CEO of a retail network or a manufacturing company, you have to be pretty disciplined to stay in that vertical to keep moving up the ladder and building your reputation so that you will be seen as a CEO candidate. If you don't do that, if you move around, everything's herky jerky, you're probably not going to get to where you want to be. So that's why it's important to have a written career plan, have accountability waypoints, keep your family involved. And when you're building the plan, you have your ultimate goal, but you also have to have your contingency goals because life happens. Companies get sold. Things that you didn't count on are going to happen. So you either adapt or you die. And what you do is you say, okay, if something happens, I'm in a town of 100,000 people. There's not another job in this community that I'm going to be able to get that pays me $250,000 or $150,000 or even $100,000 in some cases. So what am I going to do? Well, if you don't have kids, that's a little bit easier, but you need to sit down with your partner or your wife and say, if this happens, where would you like to live? Well, I don't want to move. Well, sometimes that's not an option in careers. And if you have a career that's going to take a lot of moves, those are conversations you should have before you ever get married, which usually don't occur, but that's what you should do. Because if you want to be a CEO, you're probably going to have to move 4 or 5 or maybe 6 times to work your way up over a 40-year career. That's entirely possible. You're not going to have to move as many times as an officer in the military will move. I know people who are in the medical service corps and general officer duties, they may move 22 times in a 30-year career. So, but these are all things you got to have. You got to have conversations about when you have a contingency plan. You say, okay, we like to ski, maybe the Mountain West, or we really like the hills and the quality of life on some of the mid coast areas of North Carolina, South Carolina, maybe Southern Virginia. Great. There's a lot of different companies, a lot of different opportunities there, but they won't happen. You don't need to start thinking about that the day you lose your damn job. Okay. You need to start thinking about it in advance and start building contingency networks that you would like to build around those companies you've identified. That's where LinkedIn comes into play, both identifying organizations and helping you build people within the organization. So you want to target your geographic preferences, you want to target employers, and then you use LinkedIn to research executives. And you want to get a 360 profile, a couple of superiors, a couple of peers, and some subordinates, because sometimes those subordinates, as I said earlier, will give you information that you might not get from a peer or a superior in the company. Now, hear me. Excuse me. The wider your net, the better your odds. The wider the net, the better your odds. When you're messaging people and you're asking to connect with them, just say, I'm in this field. Here's a company, there's an organization I've known about for a while, and would love to perhaps one day work there. I'd love to connect with you about opportunities in the Mountain West or on the Mid Coast or wherever it is, the Northwest. And but make it personal. Don't stalk. But make it personal. Always send a personal message, and don't make it sound like they're going to have to go out of their way to help you. That's not what you're doing. Always remember. Always say, "Can I help you in return?" Okay, so once you start building those opportunities, then you need to establish a daily work plan to connect with targeted contacts. Now, if you've lost your job and you don't have a network, then you got to do all this, not planning for the future. You got to do this slam, bam, thank you, ma'am, in real time, and you got to do it in a hurry, and you got to be very aggressive. So if you don't like cold calls, if you don't like outreach, if that makes you uncomfortable, too bad, because you should have been investing in your network before this happened. Because if it doesn't, you don't, then, and you don't want to apply for online jobs because you're going to be wasting your time. This is it. This is as good as it's going to get. You have to establish your market targets. You have to establish employers. You need to start building relationships with people there. And you have to be, when you're doing it longer range, you can be more direct in relationship building. When you do it shorter term, you need to say, look, I'm in the job market and I do this, this, and this, and my value proposition is this. And if you hear anything that you think I might be, connect with or align with, let me know. And you're going to have to probably go back to some of those times over a 3 or 4 month period, 3 or 4 times. So you want to tell them, hey, look, I've want to just bring you up to date on what's going on, blah, 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 blah. You don't want to over communicate, but you want to be sure that they know you're out there. And if you don't ask, they're not ever going to call you. If you don't ask for it, if you don't ask for help, you're not going to get it. This is where it comes in, where you have to establish that daily work plan to connect with targeted contacts. You cannot pass a day without doing this. You need to explore other potential connections in the region and in the targeted companies. And you've got to expand your network in the targeted areas. You have to do that. You need to monitor the industry news and understand that a lot of times when people are leaving jobs, by the time they get into industry news, that's already happened, and they may have already either done a search, appointed somebody internally. That's why it's so important to have people who will tell you in advance about jobs that are going to come open, or jobs that are currently open. A lot of those jobs are going to be, filled by referral. Well, if you're not doing anything to build your referral network, how in the heck are you ever going to find a job when you don't have a network and you don't have a plan? And online is going to be a big waste of time. So this is a kind of a footprint for how you have to build your network if you haven't invested the time 2 or 3 years ago to start doing that. That's why a strategic plan and networking 3.0. Networking is 3.0 is a networking schematic, today's kind of state-of-the-art networking program that aligns with your career plan and encompasses all of your options for emergency preparedness. So you don't want to be in a position of losing your job and not having a network. If you do, it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done to be able to find a position and get back in it. Will you get lucky and maybe find one in 2 or 3 weeks? I guess you could go outside and get struck by lightning on a clear day, but it's going to be hard. Now, listen, if you think it's hard now, wait 2 or 3 years. So if you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s, and you may probably have 1 or 2 or 3 more job searches in you, don't be an idiot. Okay, I apologize. Be aggressive, do the right thing, build your network. That will pay off unbelievably. I hope this has been helpful to you. We are just about 5 minutes over on time. Let's see. Hi, John. YouTube information was helpful. What do you see in the interim market for executives? That's a good question. That comes from Mike. He's in Texas. He is a successful interim executive. Right now, it's kind of a quiet market. I'm talking to people all over the country. It is quiet. There are some changes that are going to occur. And in order to be successful as an interim, that's like building your own consulting company. And people like Mike build networks, and they stay in touch with these people. And so so that they can take off as much as they want to. If you in networking, if you're in interim work, fractional work, you got to be into business development. If you don't like selling yourself, that's probably not a place for you to be unless you basically align yourself with some of the interim companies, and they call you to hire you. But right now, everybody is just kind of holding pat. There's a lot of hope that this new president will make the business economy much more robust, that it'll kind of loosen things up. There'll be more mergers and acquisitions, which could be good, could be bad if you're one of those people that gets consolidated out. But I think right now it's very, very tight, and people are, they are very, very uncertain. And if we start having an increase in recession, or inflation, you're going to probably see the Fed bump up the interest rates, and that's going to affect hiring more. Probably you're going to see more layoffs. Now, if you are a great problem solver, and you want to do interim work, you really have to do a good job building your brand and selling your value. I've done this, this, and this. You can't just say I've been the interim CEO for a $500 million organization and was successful, or I did it for 18 months, and assume that everybody's going to understand that you were really good at what you did. You have to be specifics. You don't want to violate confidentiality with a client. You don't have to use their name necessarily, but you do have to show that you accomplished a lot of things, and be specific with your network metrics. That's why you keep a journal of your accomplishments. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for us today. I really want to thank you very much. And now, before we leave, I want to share with you again information about our networking program.